It's Thursday, and that means it's time to get a take on the news from the left, right, and middle. Once again, from the left is award-winning journalist Karen Hunter, and from the right is Washington attorney Horace Cooper. Good evening, both of you.
Good evening.
Happy I guess it's Patriots Day, Independence Day. That's it.
Yeah. That's right. Happy 4th of July Eve. We're headed into it. So it's good to see you guys. I want to first of all start talking about a poll. We didn't cover it too much on Arise America, but very quickly to catch our viewers up, there was an article that said this poll was given and that 63% of Americans said that the sufferings, the hardships of black folks basically is their own fault, not to do with racism. So here's the question, and Karen, I'll start with you. Can black folks only blame themselves for the predicaments they find themselves in?
The easy answer is, of course, no. Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a wonderful piece in the Atlantic Journal recently on reparations, and in it he spelled out everything from Social Security, which exempted folks who worked on farms and who did domestic work, who by and large were black folks, who weren't eligible for something like Social Security, and they fixed it 20 years later. We can't not talk about slavery and 100 years of Jim Crow that followed that, and then say, hey, you know what, black folks, it's all your fault that you're in this predicament. Rosewood, Florida, Tulsa, Oklahoma, thriving communities that were bombed and decimated because of racism, and the countless number of people who were lynched, fathers taken from their homes, including Malcolm X's father. Those things have an impact on a community, and if they don't, then we have to have another discussion. But that, to me, to say that, we can just, most of us have pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, and most of us have, despite the uneven playing field, figured out how to be successful. But it clearly is not our fault that we're in this condition.
Horace, I hear you chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but we're going to have to send the racist boogeyman home. Here's the truth. Asian Americans, many of them from Vietnam, have come to this country and in less than 25 years have made a remarkable accomplishment. There are millions of people that were survivors of the World War I and the attacks on the Holocaust who came to this country and in less than a generation have become quite successful. The choices that people make have more to do with what happens to them than whether in a nation of 300 million, do all 300 million people love
None of those people, Horace, that you brought up were stripped of their culture, religion, and their entire...
Absolutely.
None of those people were brought here in chains and stripped of their culture and religion over a 300-year period of time. None of them had a systemic, in the law, separation, whether it was housing, schools, etc., that just affected them. None of those people had that.
I have one word for you, Karen. It's called the Holocaust. That's two.
That was in Germany. We're talking about America.
Destroyed.
Please, have you read the piece? Have you read that piece that I mentioned about reparations?
I have read, no, not that piece, but I have read many.
Everyone who's watching needs to read that piece, and then we can have a very intelligent conversation about that. Because what you're saying right now is apples and oranges.
No, it's not apples and oranges.
It's totally apples and oranges.
Here's the truth. There are more opportunities in America for people who wish to try than there had ever been prior to the Jim Crow era. And that means black, white, and brown have been able to take advantage of that. We've had an immigration increase in this country over the time of the post-civil rights era that has allowed lots and lots and lots of people who had to adjust, who had to give up the type of culture that they had in the past and transform themselves, but they did so. Many of them didn't even know the language. They looked differently. They talked differently. They sounded differently.
You're still not hitting on the point, which is right here, where systematically, when you're stripped of who you are, it affects your society. And I'm not making excuses because I'm not someone who's going to sit here and say, despite this, we should just give up, because we're not. But you can't ignore that. You can't ignore it.
That is an excuse. Here's the truth. In 2007, black Americans made more in average income than they make in 2014. That can't be slavery. How did slavery get them up and then come down? There are policies that happen that make a difference.
And your council people and your Congress people, and look at the laws that have, over the last 200-plus years, disproportionately affected black folks.
Always somebody else.
No, it's not. It's a reality. Can we just take the red pill? Is it the red pill or the blue pill? Somebody needs to
I think it's the blue
I
pill.
don't know.
You need to take a
Let's
chill
not take
pill.
any pills. We'll take the chill pill indeed. All right, I'm going to change the subject because clearly you all will not come any closer to one another on that one. Let's talk about the ruling with the Hobby Lobby case. That's made a lot of news this week. Of course, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that corporations, that private companies can be treated like individuals and their religious freedoms can be preserved, so that therefore this company and others can deny certain forms of birth control when they believe that it is against their morality. So what does this ruling really say about us, and what are the repercussions of it? Horace, I'll start with you.
6 years ago, before Mr. Obama became president, if your employer wanted to give you insurance, he could give you insurance. If your employer didn't want to give you insurance, he didn't have to give you insurance. In fact, how he gave it, what he gave, was all up to him, and nobody thought that somehow your, quote, fundamental rights were being violated. Similarly, if you stayed in an apartment that you rented or a house that you rented, your landlord can give permission to the police to come and search through your diary. Your fundamental rights aren't being violated. We've made up this new claim that somehow if your employer doesn't give you the abortion access that you want, he's somehow mistreating you, when that's a made-up claim. But the First Amendment right to freedom of religion, that's real.
Well, you know what? The Citizens United ruling, which said corporations are people, totally laid the foundation for this to happen. And what Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote in her dissent, which I thought was brilliant, is what happens? We're on a slippery slope. What happens if your employer is a Scientologist and he's against or she's against taking antidepressants? What happens if they're Jehovah's Witness and they're against blood transfusions? At the end of the day, if your employer is Muslim and they believe in Sharia law and they want you to wear a burqa or hijab. This putting corporations in a position of being people with religious rights, because you're talking about people's rights. Now I'm talking about corporations, and they should not have the right to be able to dictate what I do in my private life. If I need birth control and it's covered, I should be able to go get it, and I should not be at your whims, your religious whims, to do whatever it is.
And that's the point. That's a made-up claim. There is no. Just reverse it. Just reverse it.
Let's
go back 6 years ago.
Let's deal with what it is.
No. Let's go back 6 years
The
ago.
activist court.
If you were an individual employee and you wanted your employer to give you certain health benefits, what kind of lawsuit would you file?
What's going to end up happening is, watch, we're in a slippery slope. It's going to end up backfiring.
It's not about a slippery slope.
Activist people who are religious wanting to impose their religion on their employees now.
It's not about religious.
Shameful.
It's about the fact there is no such concept as an employee, I can demand my employer give me anything. I don't have the right to even ask to be
Well, Hobby
hired.
Lobby should divest itself from investing in these same companies that they say they don't believe in, which are a Plan B abortion. They're investing in that.
And that's a whole different topic.
Yes.
So that's a good point for me to jump in and bring this discussion to a close. It has not disappointed, as it never does. Horace Cooper, Karen Hunter, thank you both.
Happy
and happy
Enjoy the
4th of
holiday.
July.
Thank you.
You too.
All right. You're watching Horace America.